We got losers bracket round 1 between Stormkeeper and WTF. So I think this might be round 2. No, round 1. So welcome to the losers bracket round 1 in the Warchief Club 11. And we've got Whiskey Tango Fox, or WTF, as the Rus red player. And as the blue English player, we've got Stormkeeper. So we've got this best of 1 series in the Americas trial. So for those of you that don't know, this is the reserve league of the Warchief Club competition, which runs every couple of weeks, I think. So with TWC, this is sort of the minor league. It's not for money, but it's just a chance for up and coming players to test their mettle and get a bit more experience so they can play a bit more comfortably in the main events. So we're in this losers bracket now. WTF versus Stormkeeper. So the English player looking at aging up first before he does anything else. The Rus player, they do the same. Nice hunting cabin there. Just generating a little bit of gold. It's the reason people go for the first one, because it's so safe to fit into the build. Trying to fit in any more than that, for like macro wood ones, it's just harder to defend, particularly in such an aggressive meta. The English player already looking at putting a mill down away from the berries because he just wants to go straight for the fast farms. Actually, you can add a couple of those. You really add up to about 6 before you age up, but most players would probably only add 2 or 3, I guess. So you can age up, start mounting a little bit of pressure, or defending if your opponent goes for a lot of cavalry in the early game. And Rus really has the potential to play an extremely aggressive early game. So this is a nice find for Stormkeeper. He's going to deny 100 gold for the Rus player. So WTF is going to struggle to get to tier 3 of the perk here, the total bounties. Let's see if he can get all the way to 500 gold accumulated from bounty kills. So that's sheep, deer, boar. They can get basically a free, what's it called in there? Survival techniques. I keep going to call it hunting dogs, but that's what it's called in the other games of the series. There's a couple of farms here for Stormkeeper, but he may look at holding off on the rest of them in favour of aging because his Rus opponent already aging down with a really fast golden gate right next to the town centre. So he's not leaving himself any room for farms, but it does mean it's a little bit harder to kill the landmark, and on top of that it's hard to actually run rams into the town centre. Because your starting town centre is basically your age 1 landmark, and what that gives it is oh, I didn't realise that lumber camps in radius of the fortress actually generate more wood to help pay for themselves. And on top of that, yeah, I was going to say, the landmark town centres have double the capacity. You can have 20 units rather than 10, so it just means that their ability to act as a garrison point and protect things is just much more handy compared to a regular town centre. So I think WTF's actually going to try to pull the boar into the cabin, which is really nice to see because rather than having it out in the open here, having it next to the wood line means it will pay for itself faster. And it means if you ever do decide to start chopping over here, you can have the lumber camp right next to where you've got your outpost. So it's just a bit of forward thinking for the Rus player. That's all it takes. So Stormkeeper's going to scout it. It looks like WTF Scout's going to go down. May even lose another one here. He will, so Stormkeeper picking off both the Scouts. Not able to deny, and he is going to stick around and try and harass if he can. And really you could look at even trying to kill the sheep. But I suppose there's only... Is there any more boar out in the map? Or is that it? Must be it. He's not going to stick around, he's going to get the one scout, and he probably wants to bring home his own sheep anyway. Because all it takes is one click from WTF and he can one-shot the sheep, while the scouts have to really whittle them down. But overall that was really nice for Stormkeeper because he's picked off the two scouts. That's just two less units to tank early game fights. For WTF, it's going to be a bit harder for him to dive with early cavalry into the town centre. Or just really having like engagements into his opponent. Tank range damage, that sort of thing. So we've already got LE man-at-arms in production and longbowmen on the way, while there is a stables here and a fortress. So that fortress is going to be able to provide a little bit of a buff to the wood gathering. There's no stone to get a quick arrow slits here for WTF. So Stormkeeper going to be able to mount some pressure here, and the fact that he's already started Spearman production is also going to help him. I think he must have cancelled the man-at-arms upgrade in favour of getting Spearman and getting Ecotech. So did Stormkeeper scout? He did scout the stable, so that'd be why he's decided to swap from mounting some early man-at-arms production, because they're a really nice tank against your enemy bowmen. While his own bowman count, once he gets high enough, can really threaten the horsemen and force the Rus player to have to use knights to take engagements in particular. And they'll be able to take good trades against enemy range units themselves. It's a nice comp here for the English player, and I think he's going to be able to really threaten the Rus player in the early game. He's not necessarily doing anything wrong, he just might want to get a racks in favour of rangers, or yeah, just go rack stables, I guess. We got two rangers and a stables. Probably not the greatest comp to try and fight in the English, because like I said, longbowmen are actually going to outrange the other bowmen. They can really force quite tough trades. So if the bowmen just whittle down the hunting cabin here, I think it's got less health, hasn't it? Yeah, way less health. So I mean, if he's garrisoned, but you can get in range of this from here, you're probably just best off trying to whittle down the cabin, I guess. But I suppose you want to try and eventually take this. But yeah, there's knights, scouts here, so really if that was horsemen it'd be ideal. So Rus player is just going to have pot shots taken at him. English player can just mass up more of this and go for a quick age 3. Getting the town centre in the process. English LP. I do like how he's got his scouts parked out here, but really he probably needed it out on the edge just to see a little bit further. Because he's going to miss this one knight, which really could disrupt things here. So early siege engineering. Really wants to threaten this. And this is a lot of early eco locked up for WTF at the moment. It's really struggling for food income, having to switch to a lot of farms this early on, particularly for a civ that really gets a huge advantage out of the hunt eco. This is also going to mean Stormkeeper's going to have to split his units up here. These guys, he doesn't want to throw away. He's going to have to get his units reinforcing here while continuing to keep this pressure on and forcing WTF to have to repair this. That early siege engineering could get some quick rams. And he could look at actually doubling back and collapsing on this much smaller Rus army. The Rus player. What's WTF looking to do here? Just get more production at this stage? Or more things in production at this stage, I suppose, before worrying about a second town centre. Because I guess the English player is eventually going to look at moving out here, so Stormkeeper really needs to collapse on this and not let WTF bleed him out of too much. He can turn this around. But in saying that, it's a good number of spears, and as long as they don't let the bowmen get intercepted, all Stormkeeper needs to do is trickle these units up here, leave some spears back on defense from here, and keep this push going. But he's going to try and collapse on his opponent, but he's not there. WTF's rallied back. But I think Stormkeeper should have the wood, or should be able to transfer to the wood now to get really quick ram production. Go for outposts. Need a villager here for that. So this is good because I mean he only needs to add another outpost over here and he's got coverage of the Sacred and the Relic. And he can put another one here, get control of this Sacred. And he can really look at pressuring WTF in both the base and over here on the hunt. While WTF, the pressure's on now to really generate some value here. Getting a second town centre out and getting a lot more units in production. Or just going straight to age 3, dealing the damage. But right now that's a lot of units of the English player chasing a little Rus army. Well, the Rus player gathers in a pretty risky spot here. I mean, Stormkeeper really could just push that and park 5 spears here in his base, and he'd be pretty much fine to just steamroll WTF, I think. In saying that, I suppose if he knows if he picks this off, he's then got an army advantage to push into WTF with anyway. And it sort of forces WTF to stay in age 2. The towers are creeping forward around the map. But yeah, Stormkeeper's sort of delaying when I think he's definitely got the comp to just overwhelm WTF at this point. Like, he'll quickly get that archer count to a number where they can't really burst down any of the bowmen anymore, or any of the spears. And Stormkeeper should just be able to push WTF off the perch here. Because that was a lot of gathering time denied there at the start. Sorry to rule WTF out already. Here we go, King's Palace here for Stormkeeper. So he's gone for that age 3. Reasonably quick because he's only gone for 2 production buildings and a blacksmith behind this, having taken some upgrades as well. So he's actually got his range damage upgrade here for his bowman as well. If he gets his ram up, he should be able to hit this in time to really deny this gathering for WTF. Oh, he's going to get the sheep. He's going to deny the gold. That's a lot of sheep. I mean, a lot of bowmen attacking a couple of sheep, though. I suppose WTF just needs to finish this ram off, and he can really punish this. But I mean, Stormkeeper just needs to finish this ram off, and he can really punish this because WTF doesn't have a lot of units to defend here at the moment. Castle for Stormkeeper, not yet for WTF. So this is a really dire spot here at the moment for the Rus player. He does have plenty of army, but he's going to need to bring it all if he wants to defend this, or he's going to need to do some pretty crafty raiding on the English player in response, because he's going to lose this hunt. Another sheep. It's a little bit less free gold. This cabin would be generating quite a bit, but it is going to go down here. But still, the Rus player, having not invested in Age 3 at this point, does have a little bit more in the bank to throw at Age 2 units. So this is going to mean that Stormkeeper going to want to not overqueue, going to want to not overgather food and actually expand some more production here. Because right now he's got plenty of food in the bank, and really he could just get on a little bit more gold, transition to Age 3 units, get a little bit more wood, increase his production, and really take a nice decisive fight against the Rus player. But the Rus player, if he spends well here and just potentially pressures the English player, he can really take this game further. But Stormkeeper, I think he's not as confident as he could be to just end this right now. He's got a great composition. His army is only slightly smaller than Whiskey Tango Fox's now, and I think it was much better earlier. But he's definitely floating way too much food. He really needs to correct that. This is sort of throwing the lead that he had here away here. Because he really, once he punished that, he could have actually just pushed WTF, but now WTF's actually managed to outproduce him in the last minute or so, and it's going to be able to get a couple of villager kills, get a lot of gathering denial here. Although it's gathering of food that Stormkeeper doesn't really need at the moment, but even still, Stormkeeper could have these guys on more wood, on more gold, be steamrolling further and further ahead with that second town centre. There's only the single town centre here for the Rus player, but WTF doing a good job at tying his opponent up. Though he doesn't want to stick around too long here because that's a lot of damage not going his way. But oh, he is going to get out of here. The advantage of having a horse versus just wandering around with 2 feet and a heartbeat like you and me. A couple more shots being taken at the Knights. So WTF not terribly successful with that overall. He did get a couple of ills, but bearing in mind he's on 1 town centre to his opponent's 2. He's getting his Abbey of the Trinity for Age 3. Thank you for the follow, Stormkeeper. Yeah, just the fact that Stormkeeper's got, and sorry to be so critical here, but I think you're in such a wonderful spot here, and then just sort of overstack the food eco. But in saying that, WTF not all that successful. Some good defense there. So now WTF on the back foot, having got his Age 3. Stormkeeper going, well, I need to deal a bit of damage here, but he's definitely got the range too. And with Man-at-Arms upgraded, they're going to be able to tank a lot of bowman shots, and WTF's going to have to transition to crossbowmen, I think, much more quickly than Stormkeeper here, given the longbowmen do have a little bit more damage as a base over the other ranged Age 2 units, and a little bit more range. Stormkeeper's having to get that ram out of there. Back at home, I don't know if there's really any more. Then a couple more barracks is added, but no stables. But the barracks are nice because mixed infantry is really hard for range and stables to deal with, because the bowmen, I mean the archers, will hit like wet noodles against the man-at-arms, while the spearmen are a very nice cost-effective way to defend the bowmen against any sort of melee cavalry. So between them, it just really puts the pressure on your opponent to have to micro extremely well with the bowman, with his own archers, while your bowmen are going to do a little bit better overall as a general ranged damage unit. They're nowhere near as, they don't feel as specialist as the other ranged units. So WTF's actually managed to spend a little bit better here than Stormkeeper. In fact, he's even gone up to 300 stone. I think he would have just done it out of the Golden Gate. Didn't gather any actual stone. Very common. In fact, the quick Age 2 town center builds on Rus, most of them just rely on gathering wood and just double tapping the buy stone upgrade. It's only going to cost you 200 gold, which you should get if you skip nights and go for your macro cabin, which everyone does these days. You should pretty much be able to afford it out of that. So these civs are probably the two civs that have the easiest time taking a second town center. Because English, you want to go to Age 3 anyway in most matchups to get access to your knights and get your bowman upgrades and get crossbowmen. I don't know what Stormkeeper's looking to do here. He's just bringing his army down here for some reason. So in terms of army size, WTF, Stormkeeper dead even on population. What have we got? 66 eco, 59 military, 61 eco, 63 military. So Stormkeeper slightly bigger eco, WTF slightly bigger army. And outpost going down here. Good number of production facils for Stormkeeper. But he was so far ahead in the early game, I think. But now he's managing to keep his eco much more even than WTF, who's got a lot of gold in the bank, but not a lot of food or wood. And food in particular is important because you need food and gold for your Age 3 units, food and wood for your Age 2 units, other than knights. So, as much as it's a cardinal sin to bank resources too much, banking food is probably the lesser evil, or banking gold or wood tends to be a little bit more punishing because you can't just immediately do something with it once you get the other resources as much as you'd like. Because food, oh well, you can pump out either Age 2 or 3 units once you get either either wood or gold. Got excess of wood. Sometimes you just don't need any more production facilities, and sometimes you just don't need any more gold for upgrades. You only need enough to get units. So I guess that's sort of the philosophy around banking up resources more than you have to at a particular point, or what's the most effective resource to have that 1k to 2k bank at this stage of the game if you know you're not going to spend everything perfectly. I mean, ideally, you want to have a nice flat sort of count between your resources. Because, I mean, your opponent can snipe buildings, so you might need wood, even though you're mainly looking to produce food gold units in Age 3. And it just means you can add more rams whenever you need. But this is a big fight going on down, and WTF's cavalry isn't here to back this up. So this is a really good push for Stormkeeper because he can just have the crossbowmen help focus down the man-at-arms. Well, have everything really focused down the man-at-arms, then get on the archers, and the crossbowmen now transitioning straight onto the knights with a bunch of spears to back them up. So this is a tough fight for the Rus player because his comp is just slightly less complex than his opponent. But Relic going down there being a bit tough for WTF because he's not going to be able to get it back anytime soon with this much stuff here for Stormkeeper, who's building forward workshops, has brought up an outpost already, so you can just get arrow slits or even springald emplacement. Really hunker down here. But I think he's broken WTF at the moment, who's not got a lot of food in the bank. Like I said, it's what he really needs to be able to spend either of these other two resources he's got in the bank. Well, Stormkeeper, he's got plenty of wood in the bank, a little bit of food, a little bit of gold, and he's really... Oh, this is rough for WTF. Distance gathering on the wood there. If he fixes that up, he could look at sending some of those wood gatherers elsewhere, like back onto food, just because they'll be gathering more efficiently anyway. I mean, just having Bowman here pushing is not all that great, but Stormkeeper can just add Trebs behind this. He can even pull back a little squad of these Bowmen and add a Ram if he feels he needs to, but I think he's just thinking, oh, well, if I'm camping the production, it shouldn't matter. I can just get easy kills here, slowly chip away at these buildings, but ooh, Springald in placement. This is going to force him back because that's going to start two-shotting any of his units he's got here. So the Trebs right on time. But he is going to try and focus down that fortress. But I don't know if WTF has anything left to try and mount a raid or something here. He's getting his own siege workshop to try and counter the Trebs or get a mangonel. But he hasn't got any knights to try and pressure Stormkeeper somewhere on the map, which is making this really rough because from here I think it's going to be a bit of a slow death roll because as units get produced here they're just getting picked off. Like triple cross Bowman production is just nullified at the moment, and while this is happening the landmarks are falling for WTF. Stormkeeper still continuing to press on, sitting in his opponent's base at this point, and because the villagers aren't even garrisoned, the town center's not really even killing the Bowmen at any great speed. WTF is trying to get some units in behind this. He's got plenty of wood, a little bit of gold, but he's just... oh no, that's Stormkeeper's resources, sorry. Plenty of gold here for WTF, but just no food or wood to do anything with it. Stormkeeper, again, just needs a little more food. But being English, that wood can turn into a lot of food quite quickly with the farms. Just considering how much cheaper they are for the English and how much better they are for the English. I think we might see a landmark victory here, even just judging by this timeline. The fact that there's Trebs on this abbey. But WTF trying to mount a push where possible. Just trying to intercept some of the melee outside the range of all these Bowmen. I think he's pretty much given up at this point. Stormkeeper raining hell with these Trebs. All these relics available now for Stormkeeper. It's only going to take a couple more shots for the Golden Gate to fall. There's not really anything left here. WTF trying to cram out as much as he can, but GG, well played. Stormkeeper goes through to the next stage of the losers bracket.